It has been a minute, but we're back, so let's begin. For a pilot, this did a great job presenting everything we needed. A big issue I see with pilots is that most of them are just exposition instead of just making it fun. It's fun to have exposition, but it's not good to just yap about it. That's why I'm glad that you did it more in the way I try to copy as well, which is not have characters know everything so they're confused on some stuff, and this gives the video room to be more curious and also be more exciting. As a whole, this was filmed well and was set up great. Just work on having more energy with the voice acting, since most of it sounded like you were recording it when you were tired. And that's honestly the only issue here. 8.5 out of 10.
I'm sorry for beating your ass the other day.
I am so sorry for keeping this video in queue for so long, since now the meme this is about is outdated. And yeah, I'm talking about the 100 man versus the gorilla meme. You reminded me that Mr. Beast had serious allegations and we all just kind of forgot about it, which is kind of crazy. I love the energy in this video. It's not just the bouncy kind you see in people like Ed Bounce videos, but also a kind of aggressive pace in it, and for at least myself it's hard to explain. It's very in your face and the heavy contrast of the video only adds to it. Just watch out for some of the dialogue, since Chandler was way too quiet and the camera was out of focus for some parts. And I know I repeat this like a parrot, but you should work on getting a cheap macro lens off of Amazon. That way you can get closer to your figures without losing quality or zooming in. Even if the animation of this video was bad, which it isn't, it would still be a solid video, since the fact that the comedy was really well put in this video and no joke overstayed its welcome. That made the video very tightly paced and it made it so much better. The only one joke that didn't land was that one in the end where it was just a robot to cancel out the 100 men versus the gorilla. And me personally, I would have brought it to another level where I brought another meme from that time, which was the immortal snail, since I don't know if you remember, but that was a meme back then. You know, the one in the hypothetical where you're immortal but you will only lose it if you get touched by an immortal snail. I don't know if that was on YouTube Shorts, but I know it was for sure on Instagram and TikTok. If you added that to kill the gorilla, it would only make it better because you're embracing the culture back then. So in long story short, I feel like you should just embrace your jokes even more, since outside of the ending one, everything else landed. 8 out of 10. This was a fighting video, so with that in mind, cinematography matters a lot more than the previous videos. What you should have done is had the characters way more in the center, since you had them so much on the sides where they were just cutting off at some point. And this is way more critical for the parts where we're supposed to be looking directly at them. When you record lines, try not to have your mouth directly on the phone, instead have it closer to the angle of a phone call so you don't get the sound of wind hitting the microphone. The animation was actually really good, but it's just a shame that it was all the way in the end where anything happened, since this video was almost a minute but only 10 seconds was used for anything happening. If you really wanted a video to feel like it's building up to the ending, use editing and music to make it feel like it's accelerating to something bigger. Otherwise, it feels like a letdown. 5 out of 10. I love the camera work and the editing for this video. The slight shake made the physical blur of Sonic feel way more impactful, which is the thing a lot of people don't figure out when they're making that Lego brick blur. When he blurs, he must be going at a speed where the blurring is appropriate, otherwise it feels like slow motion despite him going fast, and I'm really happy that you nailed that. The quirks in the animation and the framing was majorly done well, but the camera was just too high for the dude shots. I don't know how this sounds like a microphone, but I mean the shots of the dude, and by that I really mean the camera work where the camera was just too above him. It made sense when you did it with Sonic, since he needed way more space, but the sense of skill didn't work the same way with the other guy. Also, when you're masking for a video, it's better off to either go all the way in and mask it all the way, or just not doing it at all, because when you go somewhere in between, it just looks poorer in quality, and at that point it's better just not to do the masking. I know I've just said so many things that makes it sound like I hated the video, but I'm only doing that because everything else is visibly solid in this video. You guys can literally see it, and I'm just pointing out everything else you can do to finally get this video to perfection, since it was definitely possible. 9 out of 10.
Bah oui.
The premise of the video is honestly creative and simple. I like that the set design is cute and also somewhere in the medium size, and also having the outside being an endless void adds to it. It gives it a sense of personality, and this also goes for the voice acting. Everyone sounded unique and it made everything feel way more vibrant. Make sure that when you have characters speaking that you don't waste frames on them just on silence, otherwise it makes a conversation sound unnatural when there's a 3-second gap in between of responses. Let a character every now and then slightly interrupt another person as you speak, or at least have some murmuring sounds as the other one speaks. It makes the video more dynamic doing this, in the same way having several things moving in an animation. Also, I haven't even mentioned the action. The action was really well done in this video, and I don't have any complaints for it. The best part about the things you need to work on is that they can either get naturally better over time, or you can fix them in 10 minutes. Like cutting the in-between gaps of conversations would instantly give this video a way higher rating. 7.5 out of 10. You should have copied some parts of the video right before this one, which was the colored paper in the background. With the way you have things like the box inside, it makes the video visually too noisy and it removes the focus from the characters. It's good to have some small noise in a scene scene to make it look more real, but you already did that with the ground design you gave, which was actually really great. You should have done something more similar to like when you in the ending of the video you had an orange box as the background, but playing around with the color gray too much can remove the punch of the visuals, which also goes against what a fighting video is trying to be. I'm not saying it makes the fight scene worse, I'm just saying that it removes the punch of it. Like the same way people don't read books listening to heavy metal and people don't mosh pit listening to classical music. I don't know if you know what I mean. Embrace stronger contrast and colors for your fight scenes and I promise you it will just look better. It doesn't matter what you use in the video's background as long as it embraces the video's quality. The fighting itself is solid and has plenty of potential, and I like the way you switch from a still camera to a more handheld. But what will help you better to film this is actually slower frame rate. It suits the handheld look more and it makes the fights feel more smoother and less rushed, especially since you have like microseconds longer to look at each one of the handheld frames. I know it's a small thing, but I promise you it will help the video be better. 6 out of 10. This is more of what I mean about the colored background design. Every set has new colors, so even though there wasn't much going on, it still felt like it had its own vibe for every single scenery. The character designs were actually really good, and I low-key wish I could have some of them. The characters all felt unique, but just make sure they're closer to the same volume level. When you film, make sure that you're using the lowest ISO you can in the stop motion settings, and instead use the shutter option to light up so there's less noise in the camera, letting it look cleaner. I don't know how it's like for all settings, but I'm pretty sure you can just do this with manual. ISO artificially makes the video brighter, but the shutter actually lets more light in the camera, that's why it looks cleaner. This feels like a part 1 of something, so I just recommend to continue this, since it honestly had a unique charm and I really review videos basically on how much potential they had and how much they fulfilled. And basically this video was checking all the boxes. 9 out of 10. Great job with the sense of scale in this video. The landscapes from a distance felt major, and this is all from the great set design. Just work on the framing, since sometimes characters are way too high or they're just too much on the sides. This doesn't mean all the camera stuff you did sucked, because the whole thing about the major set designs was through the illusions of your camera work, so you really only need to work on some parts of it. I also like how Steve was far off and was revealed through a blur for a moment. This worked well, and the same thing with the lighting changing depending on where you were. It really made it feel like every place was in a different environment. This is harder to do than some people might think, so great job on pulling that off. 8.5 out of 10.
Come to Aurora's birthday party, June 25th at home. We have music, delicious.
The camera work in this video is phenomenal, and the same thing goes with the set design. Since it seems like you're lacking a macro lens, you just have to accept that and get the camera further away from the figures. That way the camera can focus on them, because everything else in this video is phenomenal. I love the practical effects, and with people dying left and right and so much going on, it always felt like there was real tension. If you keep this up, your animation will gradually also smooth out, so for that there's no real advice that could help you, just continue practicing. Since with this it really shows that you have a talent. 9 out of 10.
Looking at my bitch, I bet she give your ass a bone. Looking at my wrist, it'll turn your ass to stone.
The issue this video has is one that's very common with people that also try to recreate existing movies. With all the time spent on this, your full potential would have been shown better if you try to do one scene instead of the whole movie. By trying to do the whole movie in a few minutes, it only makes everything feel extremely rushed. There were creative elements you added to this video, but it would have been way more embraced and enhanced if you try to do your own thing instead. That's really the main thing holding you back, since it limits what you can do, hence limiting what you can achieve. 5.5 out of 10.
News. You thought what would be big news?
This video story is personal to you, so I won't be telling you to change anything about that, meaning I'm gonna focus more on the technical stuff of this video. I like the subtle stuff in the animation, like the box rolling. What would have made it all feel more natural is by filming in a slower frame rate. By doing this, you will be duplicating and slowing frames down way less, since you will be needing less frames. This isn't a laziness thing, since this can also help you smoothen out the quality of the video, making it less stuttery. A video like this that takes a lot of time indoors would benefit from you buying a macro lens, which are pretty cheap on Amazon. It's not a crazy deal, but it'll definitely help you out with your interior scenes. 7 out of 10. Was already a unique series, so keeping that consistent was great. The use of sand blowing and the surreal use of color like when it was red only made the video even more unique. This also is part of your best live action use in stop motion ever. The green lights for the shot that also made the red scene were amazing, and the flamethrower part was amazingly shot. This is your best video since the Backrooms one, which is still at the all-time best brick films ever made. Everyone watching this needs to see this at least once, and same thing with this one since it's also one of your best works yet. 10 out of 10. The sense of speed of characters felt slow, but that actually helped this video. Since harsher movements felt more impactful since we were left to look at them for longer, it's rare for a video to have slow animation and actually end up making it so much better, so congrats on that. When you're masking, you have to make sure you have a clean photo without the character you're going to be masking and one with the character. That way, there's less of an issue of distortion. And make sure you have to take out everything that's not the character, instead of what's just holding him, because the lighting can change somewhat. Even though this is more complicated than just removing what's holding the character, it always ends up looking better. Make sure you also have more torso movements when characters speak so they feel more alive. The effects here were amazing though. 9 out of 10. I love what you did with the pieces on top of Flash. That probably doubled the time to film this, but it was definitely worth it. The slow motion parts were done greatly, and if anyone else wants to know how to do it properly, you have to gradually add more frames without getting a stutter, and yeah, it's harder than it looks. There were several indoor sets in this video, but the thing is that they all look very similar. You have to make sure each one has different kinds of lighting, that way it doesn't feel like you're still on the same base plate. A unique and easy form of lighting is to get a lamp and try to put it on the corners, and I really mean like the corners hitting onto the brick wall. At least for me, it gives you a very dramatic look without blooming up the camera. If I'm not dumb and I don't forget, I should have an example on the screen. Also, great job on not making Flash helping the villain feel forced, rather it fitting the story. Especially in superhero videos, I see people forcing scenes that just don't work, but you made it fit in the end of the video, so great job. The light flickers at times, so if you haven't already, make sure you're filming on manual. If it's the lighting that changes in the camera, since that's a real thing, slowly change the shutter and the ISO on your settings on the camera as they counteract to balance it out. I honestly really liked this video and it had a charm. 9 out of 10. I already mentioned this in a short, but I love that this mock actually has a brick film tied to it instead of just characters in the set spinning. Doing this is not only cool, but it also adds a whole new level of depth that people don't usually add for like mock reviews. You did way more than you needed to for this video, and I honestly recommend you guys to watch this instead of hearing the review, and make sure you take notes because it's honestly impressive. 10 out of 10. The fighting, mainly the mech fighting, is done well. What's holding you back though is the voice acting, which sounds like you're whispering it. If you could be louder, you should, but if you can't, you should either delay when you're gonna voice act or you should figure something else out. It would be really cool to have hand-drawn bubble text. You can get creative with it. And this is honestly really important, since if you're not capable of doing everything, you have to either switch what you were gonna do or embrace your limitations. And also, even though the mech fight was better, the figure-on-figure fight was way more organized and for the least seemed the most planned out. And this may not work with everyone, but planning out fights like this is way better, since you can figure out what movements will be the most impactful, like Ultron here being cut in half. Also, you can get creative with what holds your giant figures, which will help their fights be more flexible. 7 out of 10. Just like a bit back, having a small set was actually a good thing for this video. Since you had to actually embrace what you had, you ended up putting more effort into the camera angles, which is a ginormous advantage of having small sets, since there's just way more space. An interesting thing I noticed about this video is that the whole choreography is eased in and out into a rhythm of a crash and then a whoosh. There's no specific thing that can help your animation, everything you're doing is well, and the only way to polish it even more is just by continuing your work. 8.5 out of 10. The set design here was phenomenal. I like all the low light stuff because it was actually done well, and what really helped that is that there were several lights giving characters outlines in the dark, making it always recognizable on what's happening. And for a lot of people, this is easily one of the hardest things to actually get well. An example of that is me, that actually took years to get good. There's an elephant in the room about this video, and it's the fact that it's 22 minutes long. Despite that, it's well paced, and it's a miracle that's actually good for this size. And of course, I don't mean other people aren't able to pull off a video this length. What I mean is that every now and then there's always like a minute that needs to be cut off, and stuff like that ruins other people's videos throughout the pacing, but this video honestly did not have that issue. The animation is solid enough to the point that you don't actually have to force yourself to prove it, and by that I mean that you're able to pull it off just by showing the subtle movements. Everything here was executed so well, and you're one of the few people I see using a different aspect ratio correctly, since a lot of people just think of it as 16:9 but cropped. You seem to properly frame things for your aspect ratio. Back to the set design, every environment felt like its own, and it completely sells that it's not the same desk that this would all be filmed on. It would be a crime to give this anything lower than a 10 out of 10. The sound design was well done here, but the exception to this is the music. What likely all of us have struggled with before is finding the correct music for a video. But the more people use one song, the less significant it feels for your own video. I know I'm a hypocrite for saying that since I use the same song for all of my shorts, but it's different for actual brick films since they have their own identity. And another thing to point out is that less music would have actually helped out this video, since Darth Vader's lightsaber popping out would have been a perfect place to actually remove sound effects so everything feels way more dramatic, which would also make every other sound effect feel louder. I'm assuming the lighting change was on purpose, so it helps this video feel more dramatic as well. I also have to point out that this seems to be your second video, and for that, this is actually really good, and this screams potential. 7 out of 10. I already reviewed this in a short, so you know what I like about your video. Now that I have the extra time, I can tell you what you can work on when you're filming, and also I love the look they try to go for. The digital noise is very visible, and unlike grain, digital noise usually isn't as purposeful. When you see it, it's usually on accident. When you record, I assume that the stop motion app on your phone, which I assume you're filming on manual, gives you the options to change around your ISO and your shutter. Keep the ISO at the lowest possible, and instead boost the lighting with the shutter. The shutter naturally lets more light into the camera, but the ISO just brightens the photo. And what that means is that even though you play around with the brightness, only one of them will actually help you get a clean look. Despite this, I already gave you 10 out of 10 and it reflects here. What would help your fights would be to have more moving characters and more movements for the ones already moving. You clearly put time into the sets where the fights happen, so it makes sense to go all out animation wise for that as well. A good advice for this is not to film things in chronological order. Instead, film with the ratio of quantity and quality. And what I mean by that is that if there's a lot of scenes that are just talking and those majorly use the same set, film those back to back so you can get them over with and not worrying about changing your focus into something else. After or maybe before that, filming the fight scenes on their own time is smart so it doesn't slow down the filming for everything else. And like I said before, it doesn't remove or add focus from all the other scenes that need to be filmed. Animating a conversation shouldn't be treated as the same way as animating a fight scene. And I mean this in a way that usually they're not trying to convey the same kind of thing. One example of this is by pausing a fight scene, it can make the punches more impactful, but when you do it here, for your dialogue, it instead actually makes it awkward, since now there's random pauses and it doubles the runtime of this video. The tighter you make the video by editing it and not losing the real juice of the video, it actually makes it more fun. So don't try to lengthen the video by just making things take longer, especially if it's dialogue, since that's the easiest way to get the audience bored. 6.5 out of 10. With what you had available, I really think that you did the best with your resources. The animation, mainly for the fight scenes, were actually really solid. Get something to hold on to your base plate so that way they don't move around when you're filming. The gunshot effects were really good and the voice acting felt natural. You did an amazing job selling the shot of the characters walking as the base plate looked like it was actually moving. I also love what you do with your ability of free will to literally do whatever you want in this video. And that honestly gave this video such a good charm that even if you decided to film this in 1 FPS, it would still be so much fun. Nothing can really make a video better if it's already being directed to be the best version of itself entertaining wise. You outdid the potential for this video and I recommend everyone to go and watch this. 10 out of 10. The amount of good ratings in this video was actually really surprising, and that's a big round of applause for you guys. This video took a fat minute because I have a lot of homework to do and all, and I'm filming 2 animations at once. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, so share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.